Beneath the calm facade of a royal family picnic, a quiet storm was about to break that would change everything. The sun-drenched hills of Balmoral had never looked more peaceful. It was one of those rare weekends when the pressures of royalty gave way to laughter, grass stains, and the clinking of cutlery against china. For a brief moment, even titles seemed to dissolve into simple human bonds. Children ran barefoot across the meadow, their laughter echoing through the air, while the adults lingered near the tables, enjoying casual conversation without an audience. But inside one of the picnic tents, away from the cheerful noise, a conversation was unfolding that would send ripples far beyond the summer gathering. Princess Charlotte, only 9 years old, sat cross-legged on a patterned blanket with her cousins, playing a quiet game. Always observant, she had inherited her father's calm and her mother's graceful presence, with a poise beyond her years. There was something strikingly familiar in her expressions, something that stirred memories of Princess Diana. And as the fourth in line to the throne, Charlotte's presence already held weight, whether she realized it or not. But that day, it wasn't her title or potential that defined her experience. It was how someone tried to strip her of both. Queen Camilla entered the tent casually, her gaze settling immediately on Charlotte's posture. Her words came sharply, cutting through the innocence like a cold wind. "That's not how a future queen behaves." The remark was so unexpected, so unnecessarily biting, that Charlotte blinked in confusion. She wasn't misbehaving. She wasn't being disrespectful. She was simply being a child. But Camilla wasn't finished. Her comments escalated quickly, blaming Charlotte's mother, Kate, for raising her with too much softness and too little discipline. She delivered a series of stinging comparisons, even bringing up Diana, implying that Kate's approach would lead to the same tragic outcome. Then, with a voice laced in mockery, Camilla muttered, "One's a prince, the other's an arranged memoir." The phrase made no sense to Charlotte in the moment, but it sounded heavy. Dangerous. Ugly. Camilla then leaned closer and said something even colder. "The world only cares about how you look, not what makes you happy." Her tone hardened. "Your mother means well, but sometimes she forgets. She's not the queen. I am. And the way she is training you is just a disaster waiting to happen." The words stung Charlotte in ways she couldn't yet process. George, sitting nearby, shifted uncomfortably, sensing something deeply wrong but unsure of what to say. Charlotte tried to ask what she had done wrong, her voice quiet and trembling. But Camilla's response was brutal. "You're not special. You're just a princess who'll be married off one day. That's all." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving behind a stunned silence that wrapped around the children like a dark cloud. Charlotte didn't cry, not right away. Instead, she stared at the tent opening, her eyes wide and her back straighter than before, as if the innocence had been yanked from her like a curtain. It wasn't her parents she ran to. It was Princess Anne, known for her unshakable poise and refusal to play the palace's games. And noticed the subtle change in Charlotte's body language instantly. Kneeling beside her, she asked in a soft but firm tone, "What's wrong, darling?" Charlotte hesitated, then spoke. Her voice shook as she repeated Camilla's words. "She said I'm not special. She said Mummy's doing it all wrong. That I'll just be married off." And listened, her expression hardening. Her hands clenched slightly, betraying a surge of restrained anger. It wasn't the first time she had heard of Camilla crossing a line. There had been another moment, at the Queen's funeral, when Camilla made a veiled remark about Charlotte's role in the family, a comment that Anne had chosen to ignore at the time. But not today. Not again. And rose to her full height, her voice now low but unmistakably resolute. "No child in this family will be spoken to like that. Not while I'm still breathing." She knelt again, brushing Charlotte's cheek with her thumb and whispering something that made the young girl's lips twitch into the faintest smile. Then Anne took her hand and walked her straight to Kate. Without ceremony or dramatics, she told Kate exactly what had happened. Kate's face, usually a mask of calm, broke into something raw. She wrapped Charlotte in her arms and didn't let go. And meanwhile, returned to the tent, her eyes glassy but fierce. She wiped away a tear with a flick of her wrist, pretending no one saw. But this wasn't going to end with just comforting words, and knew that Camilla's behavior had crossed a line that couldn't be excused. She headed for King Charles, who stood with Camilla near the rose garden, enjoying what they likely believed was a perfect day, and didn't wait for pleasantries. She asked for a private meeting with Charles and Prince William. When William arrived, the tension in his jaw already betrayed that he knew something was wrong, and recounted every word Charlotte had repeated. Her voice didn't waver. She made it clear that this wasn't about palace discipline or royal etiquette. It was emotional abuse. Charles, visibly uncomfortable, tried to defend Camilla. She was trying to teach her, he insisted. It's important to prepare them for how the world will treat them. Diana understood that. But Anne shook her head. That wasn't pressure. That was humiliation. She's 9, Charles. 9. William said nothing, but his silence was louder than any words. His fists remained clenched, his lips drawn tight, and repeated her vow, louder now. No child in this family will be spoken to like that. Not while I'm still breathing. Charles offered no reply, and that silence was, in itself, a form of surrender. The picnic was quietly shut down. Staff packed away the plates and blankets. The laughter was gone. Balmoral had become heavy with something unspoken, but impossible to ignore. Back at the castle, Charlotte wouldn't leave Kate's side. William isolated himself in a quiet room, his expression unreadable. Kate knew this version of him. Not loud, not reactive, but deeply cold when wounded. William finally stood up and said, almost to himself, "I'm done pretending. I'm done covering for her." Then he asked for his children to join him. He sat them down and told them that kindness and respect mattered more than anything, but so did knowing when to speak up. "If anyone makes you feel small," he said, "you tell me. Not even in this family should you stay silent." He then told them they no longer had to call Camilla grandmother. "You already have one," he said, "and her name is Diana." When Charlotte asked softly if Camilla was in trouble, William's reply was pointed but calm. "She's not. But she knows what she did, and she'll take responsibility." Later that night, William found Anne still awake. He confessed the words that had been building inside him. "She thinks she's untouchable." And, sipping quietly, gave a single nod. They all do, until someone reminds them. William, now with eyes full of clarity, made a promise, not to his aunt, but perhaps to himself. "She treated my daughter like a bargaining chip. She thought no one would notice. But I'll remind her what it really means to marry into this family. And when I'm king, if I have to take that crown she leans on off her head myself, I will." And didn't argue. She's been warned. She doesn't get another chance. The following morning, the royal household moved on, as it always does. But something had changed. Camilla was noticeably absent. She skipped George's birthday tea. She didn't join the annual autumn family walk. Rumors started circling. The tabloids received quiet leaks, clearly from Camilla's camp, painting her as misunderstood, a loving step-grandmother unfairly frozen out. Gentle headlines appeared. Sources say Queen Camilla only wanted to guide. But the palace gave no statement. William remained silent, and did not offer clarity. Even Charles avoided questions. Their silence, deliberate and unwavering, told the real story. For the public, the details were murky, but the shift was clear. Inside the walls of the monarchy, things were no longer the same. Princess Anne had drawn a line that no one expected, and no one dared cross again. And in protecting Charlotte, she did more than defend a child. She changed the balance of power in a family where silence once ruled. One whispered truth had cut through years of unspoken tension. And with it came a reminder that behind every royal title is a child who deserves dignity. If this story moved you, or if you believe that compassion should never be lost to tradition, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more powerful and important stories like this to light.